Are you ready?
Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. It's me, your host, Andres Salazar. I'm a comic book writer, creator, artist right now, working on a new book called Shangri-La Estates. Check that out on my Patreon. And I just started a new film documentary called Courtside. So again, check out the Patreon for all my creative works. And yeah, I'm excited about those kind of things. And today, we're going to talk about Howard Chaykin. I think this is our first Howard Chaykin video, I think. And I think we're starting with some of his best stuff. This is Blackhawk. This is, again, one of those comics that I got on the dollar bin over at Spiro's Comics in the Valley. So this is book 3. So we're just kind of jumping in the middle of the story. They didn't have 1 and 2, so I might get the whole trade because it was pretty fun. Again, this was published in 88. I think it was. 88. This is really, I think, some of his... This is the best era, perhaps. You know, except for maybe Cody Starbuck, that kind of stuff that was done in Epic Comics. This is some of his good stuff. I really like it. We'll start with the cover. Really dug this cover. And I looked it up. I realized that this is a homage to Lyndon Decker. So Lyndon Decker, if you know him, he's an illustrator with this very kind of geometric kind of building block shapes with his figures and designs. Back in the, I want to say 30s, 40s, around there, maybe even earlier, maybe like 20s, which fits perfectly with this comic because it's that kind of period. So wonderful artist and illustrator, Lyndon Decker. Definitely highly recommend you check him out. This is an exact homage. Like, this is the exact image, but then he changed the characters to be the Blackhawk guy. One of the things I learned from Chaykin was a love of illustrators. And you guys know that I've done some videos about McGinnis and Fugues and all those like really great art, Bob Peak and all these artists that I'm really into, these illustrators. I got all that from Chaykin. Chaykin has huge scrap files or morgue files, whatever you want to call them, with reference, and he has huge binders full of artists going back from the teens, 1900s to today. So I really got appreciation for illustration. So you got to give it up. He knows his stuff for sure. Howard Chaykin. He has some assistants. Looks like Steve Oliff and Ken Brusniak. And the way I don't know if he did it back then, but modernly he has the kind of assistants help with backgrounds, kind of similar to mangakas do now with their different assistants. So he usually has a couple assistants that does that kind of work. So these backgrounds possibly could have been done by those other guys, which reminds me a little bit of the work that Lloyd did on V for Vendetta. I'll show you a couple panels too, but the high contrast, kind of the way the inks are rolled out for these backgrounds reminds me a lot of that. Generally using kind of some photography reference kind of stats and then kind of manipulating them and inking them with a light board, so light table. So Chaykin has, so this is a World War II story. I really like the colors. I really like the pencils in here, the drafting. He has kind of like 3 or 4 general kind of page compositions he usually uses in all his books. He kind of like sticks to what is good and what works for him. He always has kind of a pull out, open panel, close up. He'll do some sort of a establishing shot, and then he has a couple other shots to kind of get the story. And he does that like all the time. We'll see that many times where he'll have these shot, this kind of, see that, this thing we just saw just a moment ago, he'll do that many times. And that's kind of his deal. And then he'll do like a 2x3, and he'll change it up a little bit, but generally, right, this is kind of the way he does it. And it works. I mean, if it ain't broke, have you noticed that? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Just like That's kind of his thing. He'll pull out the open panel too sometimes just to kind of create some diversity, some change, visual variation. He'll even like break out something like this for some storytelling moments. I really like what he's doing here. He does a nice change of tools. So he'll use brush, he'll use a rapidograph at times, which I really dig. One thing I'll notice just to start off, the lettering. They decided to write all the German with some backwards letters to kind of give it that Slavic flavor, which I thought was really cool because I hadn't seen that done before. And I was like, oh, that's kind of neat how you can make the German look almost like Russian, you know? You're like, oh, I can read it still. 5 francs for all of us, you know. At least this Germans have kept inflation down on some things. But after reading throughout the whole book that way, it actually kind of got tiresome because it's not, your mind does flip some letters, but it's not that quick, and it became a little bit of a chore. So now after reading the whole thing, I'm kind of on the fence with it. I really do like the idea, but I don't know. Another thing I thought was nice about this era Chaykin is the energy, the kind of gestural quality of the line work. It still has good energy. It still doesn't look dead. It, even with his different tools, creates kind of variation in line, but it's got a nice energy to it. It's not heavily inked, or it just has a nice kind of expressive quality to it. People sometimes talk about his faces and how they all look the same or something, but you know, I think it's just a style, and I totally think that when you get to a certain level, that's the way you draw faces, and you just do it that way. And I don't have a problem actually with his faces, or kind of like all the figures might look a little similar in some ways. You know, stuff like this that's a really nice little 3/4 profile. I really dig that. I like her nose. There's just some nice kind of stuff in here. I dig. Here's that one panel I was talking about, kind of Lloyd. I want to say David Lloyd, but I could be wrong. If I think his name is David, the artist for V for Vendetta, a Vertigo book, originally published I think in Warrior magazine in England with writer Alan Moore. One of the nice things, Chaykin's scripts are very thorough, a lot of dialogue. You can see a lot of stuff happening here, a lot of words, a lot of conversation. And, you know, he's sprinkling in factoids and little elements of the era so you feel like you're in that period. You know, they mention a radio show or a political thing, or, you know, of course the war's going on. And so it's nice that, you know, the writer does the research of the era and is kind of sprinkling in the lexicon, that kind of stuff that makes it feel authentic. That's what good writing is. And he's always, I mean, this is his bread and butter, I would say, kind of this noir time, you know, The Shadow, Blackhawk, all this era, this is like his jam, I would say. So, you know, he likes it. I love that face. It's a really nice kind of good cartooning right there. It has a little bit, this right here, tiny bit of Kyle Baker shadow stuff. I just kind of felt it just for a moment here for some reason. Really like these backgrounds. Again, really kind of nice. Nice stuff. I dig it. Yeah, I would love to see his process back then if it was the same as it is now. And did I mention the coloring I really dig? Really like the coloring on here. You know, he's using kind of a textured, well, he used to use like a kind of like a Contig pencil for stuff, and it looks kind of like that. I'm not sure if the coloring, if they just put a color mat over it or not, but it looks like it. And the dialogue is salty, and it's got, some cussing, which is fine. It's mature. It's not for kids. He wants to write a mature story, and he's trying to write for adults and who like the medium of comics. And so there's some themes here where he's beating his girl, and there's some double entendres and kind of symbolic meaning, talking about his hard-on and things like that. Well, his hard-on, there's a sexual element to the violence here that's happening, and death is, he's dying. He's only got a couple months to live, and so we kind of are. It's good writing. It's learning about him. See, this is the stuff I'm talking about. This kind of like really loose energy, looseness to the inking, to the lines. I like this. And these are not. This is nice repeatiographs here. So mixing the inking with brush, repeatiograph, stuff like that. Again, it's creating variation, which is aesthetically pleasing. Yeah, good use of silhouettes. This is probably some of his best stuff. I dig it a lot. Yeah, it's a fun story. I actually kind of, now that I'm thinking about it, I want to get the other two. I need to get the whole thing, which I've never read. I know it's considered some of his best stuff. And this is a great background here. I like this stuff. This would most likely be all done by his assistants, I would assume. Yeah. I always like these little small. This reminds me of like a George Perez. I know it wasn't taken from George Perez at all, but George Perez used to always do that kind of stuff with tons of little headshots when something happens, like Crisis on Infinite Earths. Good facial expression stuff. He always does. So it's kind of funny. He does do these square-jawed guys. He's into that, like Chris Sprouse, Tom Strong type of big jawed dudes, which is good. Yeah, I like that too. Yeah, good book. I thought this was really cool. Nice little some airbrush, possibly. Looks like kind of airbrush jobby. Yeah. Acknowledge Will Eisner, Bill Woolfolk, Bob Powell, Reed Crandall. Oh, Reed Crandall's great. Chuck Cudiera and Dick Dillon. Yeah. Who is the editor of this? Mike Gold. That doesn't sound familiar. I don't know who Mike Gold is. Yeah. I really wish he'd do more paintings. His paintings are really cool. I like it a lot. It's fun. There you go. That's Blackhawk. Howard Chaykin. One of the best. Still around. Good fella. Good artist. There you go. Thanks for watching. What do you think? What's your favorite Chaykin book? Let me know. If there's something else you want me to review or talk about, yeah, check it out. Also have another channel called The Outgroove, about music. I talk about music and music gear. Check that out too. And thanks for watching. Bye, guys.